You're listening to Revolutionary Canada Today Show, a podcast made to give quick, insightful stories of Canada's victories, losses, innovation, and creation. I'm your host, Yuena Awad. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, find somewhere cozy, and join me on today's latest episode. Aren't you proud to call yourself a Canadian? I mean, get this. You live in a free and diverse country. The most ridiculed trait you have is being apologetic and kind. What else could you possibly want? Today, on December 31st, 1999, I'll remind you some of Canada's most unforgettable events this past century. So let's just dive in on pondering on the Battle of Papillon, where the Canadian soldiers truly showed they were made out of steel. Even though Canadian soldiers were bombarded with deadly attacks, they held their ground and fought like warriors. The year 1951 marks one of Canada's most honorable military achievements of the 20th century. Canada was awarded with the Presidential Unit Citation from the United States for its exceptional fearlessness. Although Canada did not win the war, our soldiers fought for our country with all their power, only leaving 10 dead Canadian soldiers. But what happened during this battle? Approximately 700 Canadian soldiers were sent to fight against 5,000 Chinese troops. That's a 7-to-1 ratio. Canadian troops were told to prepare for this massive invasion of Chinese troops by digging into the hill in which they would fight on, called Hill 677. Despite the odds, a wounded Canadian soldier was able to save his army by shooting the enemy 3 times with his gun from a far distance. This Canadian soldier was later awarded for his heroic act with a medal. The Chinese tactics included attacking in waves during the night with grenades and machine guns, which was countered by the Canadians using heavy fire. At this point, the Canadians had the chance to withdraw from the battle. However, the soldiers' leader had other plans. He recognized that the hill they were on was a huge advantage and strategic point for the front of the United Nations. Though the Chinese attacks stopped, they kept the troops at the base of the mountain. This prevented Canadian soldiers from going down to find resources. Eventually, their food supply ran short, so they resorted to being supplied through an airdrop. Soon after this traumatizing captivity, they were freed by the United States Cavalry Division. I mean, that sounded straight out of a movie, don't you think? This next revolutionary Canadian creation was one of Canada's most significant cultural developments. In 1967, a group of beginner filmmakers were challenged to make a multi-screen film that would allow for the first large film experience. After much brainstorming and trial and error, they came up with the idea of synchronizing 9 projector screens to make the ultimate screen size. Although they completed this difficult task, they became curious as to what they could have done differently to make the process smoother and easier to handle. They spent the next 3 years developing the IMAX camera, which was made for large filmmaking. Due to their great success and large sum of impressed audience, they further advanced the IMAX camera and created IMAX Dome and IMAX 3D. Each one of these cameras served different purposes for a variety of consumers. This masterpiece gave Canada massive leverage, undeniably changing the film industry forever. Just a quick word from today's sponsor. A big thank you to Colgate for sponsoring today's podcast. They are an amazing toothpaste company that I personally enjoy using. Check them out for a 10% discount using Ref Canada at checkout and enter the new year with fresh breath. I actually happen to remember the first time I watched a movie in the cinema, which felt absolutely magical. This next creation might have hit home to all those programming lovers. In 1991, a Canadian man after the name James Gosling desired improvement and innovation within technology. He wanted to better the communication between humans by improving its roots, which were actually found in communication between devices themselves. Gosling hired a team of passionate individuals who would work on this design to perfection. In 1995, James Gosling released the first ever JavaScript, which provides endless possibility for computer engineer geeks. Now let me tell you, people like my brother who are highly passionate for these softwares went nuts. He added functions to allow you to code in different languages and ultimately experience satisfactions at your fingertips. JavaScript became extremely popular, so much so they began working on new designs for different hardware, including home computers, internet servers, and versions of Java that can be embedded into small handheld devices. So, how did the Canadian government react? The Canadian government, highly impressed by Gosling's creation, appointed him as the Officer of the Order of Canada. Okay, but what do you think this next century has in store for us? Happy New Year to all my podcast listeners. If you are interested in more, I highly recommend that you visit my podcast page called The Revolutionary Canada Today. Make sure you like and rate this podcast, and I will see you next time.